There was a sight within the cocktail lounge to give him hope. A large, fat man, round as a butterball, stood drinking consecutive beers at the bar. Now there was a successful man. Harris repressed the desire to go up, clap the fat man's shoulder, and inquire as to how he'd gone about impounding his bones. Yes, the fat man's skeleton was luxuriously closeted. There were pillows of fat here, resilient bulges of it there, with several round chandeliers of fat under his chin. The poor skeleton was lost. It could never fight clear of that blubber. It might have tried once, but not now. Overwhelmed, not a bony echo of the fat man's supporter remained. Not without envy, Harris approached the fat man as one might cut across the bow of an ocean liner. Harris ordered a drink, drank it, and then dared to address the fat man. "Glands? You talking to me?" asked the fat man. "Or is there a special diet?" wondered Harris. "I beg your pardon, but you see, I'm down. Can't seem to put on any weight. I'd like a stomach like that one of yours. Did you grow it because you were afraid of something?" "You," announced the fat man, "are drunk. But I like drunkards." He ordered more drinks. "Listen close. I'll tell you. Layer by layer," said the fat man, 20 years, man and boy, I built this." He held his vast stomach like a globe of the world, teaching his audience its gastronomical geography. It was no overnight circus. The tent was not raised before dawn on the wonders installed within. I have cultivated my inner organs as if they were thoroughbred dogs, cats, and other animals. My stomach is a fat, pink Persian Tom, slumbering, rousing at intervals to purr, mew, growl, and cry for chocolate tidbits. I feed it well. It will most sit up for me. And, my dear fellow, my intestines are the rarest pure-bred Indian anacondas you ever viewed in the sleekest, coiled, fine, and ruddy health. Keep 'em in prime, I do, all my pets, for fear of something, perhaps." This called for another drink for everyone. "Weight gain?" The fat man savored the words on his tongue. "Here's what you do. Get yourself a quarreling bird of a wife, a baker's dozen of relatives who can flush a covey of troubles out from behind the veriest molehill. Add to that a sprinkling of business associates whose prime motivation is snatching your last lonely quid, and you are well on your way to getting fat. How so? In no time you'll begin subconsciously building fat betwixt yourself and them. A buffer, epidermal state, a cellular wall. You'll soon find that eating is the only fun on earth. But one needs to be bothered by outside sources. Too many people in this world haven't enough to worry about. And then they begin picking on themselves, and they lose weight. Meet all of the vile, terrible people you can possibly meet, and pretty soon you'll be adding the good old fat." And with that advice, the fat man launched himself out into the dark tide of night, swaying mightily and wheezing. "That's exactly what Dr. Burley told me slightly changed," Harris thought. "Perhaps that trip to Phoenix now, at this time." The trip from Los Angeles to Phoenix was a sweltering one, crossing as it did the Mojave Desert on a broiling yellow day. The traffic was thin and inconsistent, and for long stretches there would not be a car on the road for miles ahead or behind. Harris twitched his fingers on the steering wheel. Whether or not Creldon and Phoenix lent him the money he needed to start his business, it was still a good thing to get away and put distance behind. The car moved in the hot sluice of desert wind. The one Mr. H. sat inside the other Mr. H. Perhaps both perspired, perhaps both were miserable. On a curve, the inside Mr. H. suddenly constricted the outer flesh, causing him to jerk forward on the hot steering wheel. The car plunged off the road into boiling sand and turned half over. Night came. A wind rose. The roof was lonely and silent. The few cars that passed went swiftly on their way, their view obstructed. Mr. Harris lay unconscious until very late. He heard a wind rising out of the desert, felt the sting of little sand needles on his cheeks, and opened his eyes. Morning found him gritty-eyed and wandering in thoughtless, senseless circles. Having in his delirium got away from the road. At noon he sprawled on the poor shade of a bush. The sun struck him with a keen sword edge, cutting through through to his bones. A vulture circled. Harris's parched lips cracked open. "So that's it," he whispered, red-eyed, bristle-cheeked. "One way or another. You'll walk me, starve me, thirst me, kill me." He swallowed dry bursts of dust. "Sun cook off my flesh, so you can peek out. Vultures lunch off me, and there you'll lie, grinning with victory like a bleached xylophone strewn and played by vultures, with an ear for odd music. You'd like that. Freedom." He walked on through a landscape that shivered and bubbled in the direct pour of sunlight, stumbling, falling flat, lying to feed himself little mouths of fire. The air was blue alcohol flame, and vultures roasted and steamed and glittered as they flew in glides and circles. Phoenix, the road, car, water, safety. "Hey!" someone called from way off in the blue alcohol flame. Mr. Harris propped himself up. "Hey!" The call was repeated, a crunching of footsteps, quick, with a cry of unbelievable relief. Harris rose, only to collapse again in the arms of someone in a uniform with a badge. The car tediously hauled, repaired. Phoenix reached. Harris found himself in such an unholy state of mind that the business transaction was a numb pantomime. Even when he got the loan and held the money in his hand, it meant nothing. The thing within him, like a hard white sword in a scabbard, tainted his business. His eating colored his love for Clarice, made it unsafe to trust an automobile. All in all, this thing had to be put in its place. The desert incident had brushed too close, too near the bone. One might say, with an ironic twist of one's mouth, Harris heard himself, thanking Mr. Creldon dimly for the money. Then he turned his car and motored back across the long miles, this time cutting across to San Diego so he would miss the desert stretch between El Centro and Beaumont. But careful! Salt waves boomed, hissing on the beach outside Laguna. Sand, fish, and crustacea would cleanse his bones as swiftly as vultures. Slow down on the curves over the surf. Damn, he was sick. Where to turn? Clarice? Burley? Munigant? Bone specialist Munigant? Well? "Darling!" Clarice kissed him. He winced at the solidness of the teeth and jaw behind the passionate exchange. "Darling!" she said slowly, wiping his lips with her wrist, trembling. "You look thinner. Oh, darling, the business deal. It went through, I guess." "Yes, it did." She kissed him again. They ate a slow, falsely cheerful dinner, with Clarice laughing and encouraging him. He studied the phone. Several times he picked it up indecisively, then laid it down. His wife walked in, putting on her coat and hat. "Well, sorry, but I have to leave." She pinched him on the cheek. "Come on now, cheer up. I'll be back from Red Cross in 3 hours. You lie around and snooze. I simply have to go." When Clarice was gone, Harris dialed the phone nervously. "Am Munigant?"